What would you do if a $7 million Ferrari suddenly stopped working and 6 world-class specialists all failed to find the problem? For 3 long weeks, one of the rarest cars in the world sat motionless inside a climate-controlled vault. Engineers flew in from Italy. Experts arrived from Europe and America. Expensive diagnostic machines scanned every system. Yet every report came back with the same answer: no fault found. To the outside world, it became a mystery no one could solve. But then, on a quiet Friday afternoon, a small-town mechanic named Caleb Reed walked into the room. He wasn't famous. He didn't own a luxury garage. He didn't arrive with a team of engineers. Instead, he did something nobody else thought to do. He listened, and within minutes, Caleb heard a strange sound hidden deep inside the Ferrari. A sound that would uncover not only the real problem, but also a shocking betrayal involving one of the most powerful business executives in the city. Why was Caleb the only person who could hear it? What secret connected him to this rare Ferrari, years before anyone knew it existed? And who had deliberately turned a tiny mechanical flaw into a weapon capable of destroying a CEO's reputation? Stay with us until the end of this incredible story, because the truth behind this Ferrari is far more surprising than anyone imagined. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, do you think the car was broken by accident or sabotaged on purpose? And if you enjoy inspiring stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more unforgettable adventures. 3 weeks before Caleb Reed ever laid eyes on the Ferrari, the car had already become a problem nobody could explain. The vehicle sat inside a climate-controlled storage facility on the edge of Jazelle Voss's private estate. The building resembled a museum more than a garage. Soft lighting illuminated polished concrete floors. Humidity sensors monitored every corner. Temperature controls maintained perfect conditions 24 hours a day. Inside were 8 extraordinary vehicles, each worth a fortune. But the centerpiece of the collection was a Ferrari LaFerrari Aperta, one of the rarest production cars ever built. For years, it had performed flawlessly. Then one afternoon, everything changed. Jazelle Voss still remembered the exact moment. She had been driving alone along a private stretch of road outside the city. The weather was clear. Traffic was non-existent. The Ferrari responded perfectly to every touch of the accelerator. Then, without warning, the engine died. There was no explosion, no smoke, no flashing warning lights. The car simply stopped communicating with itself. 1 second it was alive. The next second, it was silent. Jazelle coasted to the side of the road and sat behind the steering wheel in complete disbelief. She had built a business empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Problems were part of her daily life. Supply chain failures, contract disputes, market fluctuations, she handled them all. But this felt different. Machines usually failed for a reason. This one appeared to have no reason at all. The first diagnostic team arrived 2 days later. They connected specialized equipment to the Ferrari and spent hours analyzing every electronic system. Nothing. The second team brought more advanced tools. Nothing. The third team reviewed every component from front to back. Still nothing. As the days passed, the mystery only deepened. 6 different groups of specialists inspected the car. 6 different reports reached the same conclusion. No identifiable fault. No explanation. No solution. At first, Jazelle treated the situation as a temporary inconvenience. Then it became an obsession. Every morning she checked for updates. Every afternoon she reviewed technical reports. Every evening she wondered what the experts had missed. Yet the answers never came. What frustrated her most was not the cost. She could afford any repair bill. What bothered her was uncertainty. For her entire career, success had depended on understanding problems faster than everyone else. Now she faced a problem that refused to reveal itself. Eventually, news of the mystery spread beyond her private circle. Automotive journalists became interested. Industry insiders began discussing the case. How could one of the world's most advanced hypercars fail without leaving any evidence behind? The story attracted attention precisely because nobody had an answer. Standing beside the Ferrari during a small media briefing, Jazelle described the situation carefully. She called it an engineering curiosity, a puzzle, a rare anomaly. Outwardly, she appeared calm and confident. Internally, she was running out of patience. Beside her stood Ryan Ashford. For 3 years, Ryan had been one of the most trusted executives at Voss Industries. He anticipated problems before they appeared. He managed critical projects. He handled sensitive negotiations. Many people believed Ryan was the most reliable person in the entire company, including Jazelle herself. During the briefing, Ryan stood quietly behind her shoulder, listening as reporters asked questions. He nodded at the appropriate moments. He appeared supportive, professional, loyal. No one noticed the brief expression that crossed his face when the cameras turned toward the Ferrari. A thin smile. Gone, almost instantly. Too quick for anyone to question, too subtle for anyone to remember. Yet if someone had been watching carefully, they might have recognized it. It was not the smile of a concerned colleague. It was the smile of someone watching a plan unfold, exactly as intended. Meanwhile, across town on Cedar Street, life continued normally. The small repair shop known as Reed Automotive opened every morning at the same time. Customers arrived with ordinary problems, brake repairs, oil leaks, engine maintenance. Nothing glamorous, nothing worth millions of dollars. The shop's owner preferred it that way. Caleb Reed had spent years building a quiet life. Most people saw only a skilled mechanic running a modest business. Few knew about his past. Fewer still understood why he had left one of the most prestigious engineering careers in the automotive world. He never discussed it. He simply focused on the work in front of him. Cars came in. Cars got fixed. Life moved forward. And so, while wealthy executives searched desperately for answers and elite specialists failed one after another, the only person capable of solving the mystery was changing brake pads, rotating tires, and drinking coffee inside a small garage on Cedar Street. Neither Jazelle nor Caleb knew it yet, but their paths were already moving toward each other. And somewhere inside a silent Ferrari, worth $7 million, a tiny hidden clue waited patiently for the one person in the world capable of finding it. Most people who visited Reed Automotive never asked Caleb Reed about his past. They came because their cars made strange noises, because their engines wouldn't start, because someone they trusted had told them, if Caleb can't fix it, nobody can. And for Caleb, that was enough. Every morning began the same way. He arrived before sunrise, unlocked the front door, and switched on the lights above the service bays. The shop was small compared to the facilities he had once worked in. 2 service lifts, a front office, a parts room, a workbench worn smooth by years of use. Nothing about the building suggested extraordinary expertise. That was exactly how Caleb preferred it. For 4 years, he had built a life designed around simplicity. No corporate meetings, no executive presentations, no media interviews, just honest work. Most customers assumed he had always been a local mechanic. They were wrong. Long before Cedar Street, Caleb Reed had worked in northern Italy, at one of the most prestigious automotive engineering facilities in the world. He had spent nearly a decade helping develop some of the most advanced performance vehicles ever created. His specialty was systems integration, the complex relationship between mechanical engineering, electronics, software, and human input. It was a field that required unusual attention to detail. A good engineer could understand how a system worked. A great engineer could understand why it failed. Caleb belonged to the second category. Colleagues often joked that he could hear problems before machines knew they existed. He noticed vibrations others ignored, patterns others overlooked, tiny inconsistencies that never appeared in diagnostic reports. It wasn't magic. It was observation. Years of disciplined observation. That reputation eventually placed him on projects reserved for the company's best engineers. One of those projects involved the development of a revolutionary hybrid hypercar, a machine designed to push automotive technology beyond anything previously attempted. The work was demanding. Deadlines were relentless. Expectations were enormous. But Caleb loved it. For years, engineering wasn't just his profession, it was his identity. Then everything changed. The change didn't happen in a laboratory, or during a project review, or because of a professional disagreement. It happened at home. His wife Emily had always understood the demands of his career. She knew the long hours, the international travel, the late-night phone calls. She never complained. Instead, she encouraged him, supported him, reminded him why he had chosen the path in the first place. She was the calm center of his life, the person who made every success meaningful. Then, 4 years earlier, a single phone call destroyed the future they had planned together. The accident happened on a rainy evening. A truck lost control on a mountain road. Emily never made it home. For a long time afterward, Caleb couldn't remember much about the weeks that followed. Grief has a way of erasing details. Days blurred together. Conversations disappeared. Time moved without meaning. People offered sympathy. Friends tried to help. Co-workers gave him space. Nothing changed the reality he faced every morning. Emily was gone, and she wasn't coming back. The projects that once excited him suddenly felt empty. The career that had consumed so much of his energy no longer mattered. He continued working for a while. Months passed, then more months. But something fundamental had changed. The passion remained. The purpose did not. Eventually, Caleb made a decision few people understood. He resigned. Not because he was forced to. Not because he failed. Not because he couldn't continue. He left because he needed to survive. The corporate world measured success through titles, awards, and accomplishments. None of those things could repair what he had lost. So he walked away. He sold his house in Italy, packed his belongings, returned to the United States, and purchased a modest repair shop on Cedar Street. Many former colleagues considered the decision irrational. Some believed he would eventually return. Others assumed he was wasting his talent. Caleb ignored all of them. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to build a future. He was simply learning how to live in the present. Slowly, the routine helped. Customers came and went. Vehicles arrived broken and left repaired. Days developed structure again. Life regained a rhythm, not the life he once imagined, but a life he could carry. Over time, word spread. People noticed something unusual about Reed Automotive. Cars that baffled other shops somehow found answers there. Difficult diagnostics became routine. Complex problems became solvable. Customers arrived frustrated and left relieved. The waiting list grew. The reputation followed. Yet Caleb never advertised, never expanded, never chased recognition. He had already lived in a world where everyone wanted more. More money, more influence, more status. Cedar Street taught him the value of enough. On a quiet Wednesday morning, nearly 4 years after opening the shop, Caleb was working beneath a Porsche 911 when Diana Flores entered the service bay. She carried a notepad. Nothing about her expression suggested urgency. Still, Caleb noticed the difference immediately. Diana rarely interrupted him without reason. She crouched beside the vehicle and read from the paper. A customer called about a diagnostic inspection. Caleb nodded. "What kind of car?" There was a brief pause. Then she answered, "A Ferrari, la Ferrari aperta." For the first time all morning, Caleb stopped working. Not dramatically, just long enough to think. The name triggered memories buried years earlier. Engineering meetings, technical reports, design reviews. Thousands of hours spent studying systems most people would never see. Diana noticed the change. "Do you know the model?" Caleb slid out from beneath the Porsche. He wiped his hands with a shop towel and looked at the appointment schedule. His expression remained calm, but behind his eyes, old knowledge was already waking up. "Who owns it?" he asked. Diana checked her notes. Jazelle Voss. The name meant nothing to him. The car did. He stared at the calendar for several seconds, then nodded once. Confirmed the appointment. No deposit. No deposit. Special rate? Standard rate. Diana smiled slightly. "That's what I thought." She returned to the front office. Caleb stood alone beside the Porsche. Somewhere across the city, one of the rarest Ferraris ever built was waiting for an answer. He didn't know yet that the mystery surrounding the vehicle had already defeated 6 expert teams. He didn't know a powerful executive's career was hanging in the balance. And he certainly didn't know that one small component hidden deep inside the car would reconnect him to a world he had deliberately left behind. But for the first time in years, fate was knocking on the door of Reed Automotive. And this time, it wasn't asking permission to enter. Friday arrived with clear skies and cool air. At Reed Automotive, the morning began like any other. Caleb repaired a transmission problem on a pickup truck. Diana answered customer calls. The coffee machine worked overtime. Nothing suggested the day would be different. Then, at 1:58 p.m., a flatbed truck turned onto Cedar Street. Diana noticed it first. The truck moved slowly, attracting attention from nearly everyone nearby. People paused on sidewalks. Drivers slowed their vehicles. A few customers walked outside to see what was happening. Even before the truck stopped, everyone could tell the cargo wasn't ordinary. The shape alone revealed that. Long, low, exotic, expensive. The flatbed rolled into the parking lot and came to a gentle stop. Behind it came 2 black SUVs. The atmosphere changed immediately, not because anyone said anything, because everyone recognized importance when they saw it. The rear ramp lowered. Technicians carefully secured the transport equipment, and there it was, the Ferrari. Even covered in a thin protective layer of dust, it looked extraordinary. Its sculpted body reflected the afternoon sunlight. Its proportions seemed almost impossible. The car didn't resemble transportation. It resembled artwork. Diana glanced toward Caleb. Most people would have stared. Most people would have shown excitement. Caleb simply wiped his hands on a clean shop cloth and walked toward the vehicle. His reaction was so calm it almost seemed strange. The SUV doors opened. Several assistants stepped out first. Then came Jazelle Voss. She crossed the parking lot with confident, measured steps. Everything about her suggested control. The tailored blazer, the steady gaze, the calm expression. She looked like someone accustomed to making difficult decisions and having those decisions obeyed. When she reached Caleb, she didn't waste time on introductions. 6 inspection teams, she said. No answers. She briefly summarized everything that had happened. The diagnostics, the failed investigations, the growing frustration, the unanswered questions. Caleb listened without interruption. When she finished speaking, silence settled between them. Jazelle expected another speech, another promise, another expert explaining why he would succeed where everyone else had failed. Instead, Caleb asked a single question. What were the exact driving conditions when the failure occurred? Jazelle blinked. No one had asked that before. Straight road, she answered. Constant speed. No turns. No change in elevation. No unusual weather. For several seconds, Caleb said nothing. Then he nodded once. A very small movement. Yet something about it felt significant. He walked toward the Ferrari. Jazelle followed. So did Diana. The assistants remained behind. Caleb circled the car slowly, not touching it, not opening anything, just observing. His attention seemed focused on details invisible to everyone else. The position of vents, panel alignment, heat extraction pathways, surface temperatures. He completed one circle, then another. The entire inspection seemed strangely simple. Jazelle began wondering whether she had made a mistake bringing the vehicle here. Then Caleb stopped beside the passenger side air intake. He crouched down, tilted his head, and listened. At first, nothing happened. 1 minute passed, then another. The scene felt almost ridiculous. A $7 million hypercar, 6 world-class diagnostic team, thousands of hours of analysis. And now, a mechanic was listening to an air vent. One of the assistants exchanged skeptical looks with another. Jazelle remained silent. Something told her not to interrupt. Caleb closed his eyes. The parking lot noises faded. Traffic disappeared. Voices disappeared. He focused completely. Years earlier, engineers had joked about his hearing. Not because his ears were special, because his attention was. Most people listened for obvious sounds. Caleb listened for relationships between sounds, patterns, inconsistencies, tiny differences that revealed larger truths. Then he heard it, a faint harmonic vibration, almost imperceptible, so quiet that most people would dismiss it as background noise. Yet Caleb immediately recognized it. His eyes opened, a memory surfaced. An engineering meeting, a technical report, a discussion from years ago in Italy. The sound lasted less than a second, but it was enough. His entire posture changed, not dramatically, just enough for Diana to notice. She had worked beside him long enough to recognize the signs. Caleb had found something. Jazelle saw it too. "What is it?" she asked. Caleb didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stood and looked at the Ferrari again. This time not as a mechanic, as an engineer, a man remembering information buried years earlier. Finally, he spoke. "Do you have the original factory build documentation?" Jazelle frowned. "The owner's manual?" "No. The production documentation. The vehicle records." The request surprised her. None of the previous specialists had asked for those documents. Still, she trusted her instincts. "If you need them, I'll get them." "I need them." "Why?" Caleb looked at the Ferrari, then back at her. "Because I think this problem started before you ever owned the car." The statement hit like a shockwave. Jazelle stared at him. For 3 weeks she had been chasing mechanical explanations, component failures, software glitches, manufacturing defects. Now Caleb was suggesting something entirely different, something older, something hidden, something connected to the vehicle's history. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope, not certainty, not confidence. Hope, a small but important difference. "Can you fix it?" she asked quietly. Caleb considered the question, then gave the most honest answer possible. "I don't know yet." Most people would have found the answer disappointing. Jazelle didn't, because it was the first honest answer she had received. No promises, no guarantees, just truth. And after weeks of failure, truth felt valuable. Caleb turned toward Diana. "I'll need 48 hours. She nodded immediately. Jazelle folded her arms. 48 hours? That's my estimate. And if you're wrong?" Caleb looked directly at her. "Then I'll tell you I'm wrong." The simplicity of the answer caught her off guard. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Then Jazelle extended her hand. The first handshake between them. A small gesture, but an important one. 48 hours, she said. Caleb shook her hand. 48 hours. As the transport crew unloaded the Ferrari into the center service bay, neither of them realized they had just crossed an invisible line. What appeared to be a mechanical mystery was becoming something far more dangerous, because hidden somewhere inside, that Ferrari was not merely a defect. It was evidence. Evidence connected to a decision made years earlier. Evidence that would soon expose a betrayal no one saw coming. And once Caleb Reed uncovered the truth, powerful people would discover that some secrets are far more difficult to repair than broken machines. That evening, long after the last customer had left Cedar Street, the lights inside Reed Automotive remained on. The Ferrari sat alone in the center service bay. Its glossy red body reflected the overhead lights like a mirror. Outside, the street was quiet. Inside, Caleb Reed prepared to begin the most important inspection of his career. Diana stayed late without being asked. She sat near the office doorway with her laptop open, handling paperwork while occasionally glancing toward the Ferrari. Something about the situation felt different. Caleb felt it too. He removed the first body panel with slow, deliberate precision. Then another, and another. Within an hour, portions of the vehicle's internal structure were exposed. To most people, the machinery would have appeared impossibly complex. A maze of electronics, cooling systems, power distribution units, hybrid integration components. Yet Caleb moved through the architecture effortlessly. Every bolt, every bracket, every connector. He remembered them all. It was like walking through a house he had once lived in. The years had passed, but the memories remained. Diana watched him work. "You've done this before," she said. Caleb smiled faintly. "More times than I can count." As midnight approached, the inspection became increasingly focused. The strange harmonic sound he had heard earlier continued to occupy his thoughts. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It belonged somewhere specific, and eventually, it led him exactly where he expected. Deep inside the hybrid integration assembly, hidden beneath a secondary heat shield, protected behind components most technicians never touched, there sat a small pressure regulation valve. The part was barely larger than a man's thumb. At first glance, it looked perfectly normal. No cracks, no damage, no corrosion, nothing obvious. Yet Caleb stared at it for several seconds. Then he slowly leaned closer. A memory returned. 4 years earlier, Italy, a conference room filled with engineers, technical drawings projected onto a screen, a discussion about resonance frequencies, a potential flaw discovered during post-production testing. Suddenly, everything connected. His heartbeat quickened, not from excitement, from certainty. "That's impossible," Diana whispered, after noticing his expression. Caleb didn't answer immediately. He retrieved a flashlight, then carefully illuminated the mounting bracket surrounding the valve. The beam swept across the metal surface, and there it was, a tiny mark, almost invisible, a faint indication that someone had adjusted the mounting bolt. Not enough to attract attention, just enough to change performance. Caleb immediately grabbed a measuring tool. The result confirmed his suspicion. The bolt had been rotated 1/8 of a turn, no more, no less. To most people, such a tiny adjustment meant nothing. To Caleb, it meant everything, because he knew exactly what that adjustment would do. Years earlier, engineers had discovered that under very specific conditions, the valve could generate a resonance frequency. The vibration lasted only milliseconds, too brief to trigger diagnostic warnings, too subtle to leave error codes, but powerful enough to interrupt communication between critical vehicle systems. The result? The engine would shut down, cleanly, silently, without explanation. It was an extraordinarily rare flaw, one that affected only a handful of vehicles from a limited production run, and Caleb knew that because he had personally written the original engineering report. For several moments, he simply stared at the component. The realization was almost surreal. After years away from that world, the past had suddenly returned. Not through a person, not through a company, but through a single piece of machinery. Diana broke the silence. "So that's what happened?" Caleb nodded slowly. "Partially." "Partially?" His eyes remained fixed on the bracket. "There's something else." Diana stepped closer. "What do you mean?" Caleb pointed at the adjustment mark. "This didn't happen by itself." The words hung in the air. Neither spoke. Both understood the implication immediately. Mechanical defects happen. Manufacturing flaws happen. But bolts don't rotate themselves. Someone had touched it. Someone with knowledge. Someone who understood exactly how the system worked. And more importantly, someone who knew what the outcome would be. Diana folded her arms. Could one of the inspection teams have done it? Caleb shook his head. "No." "How do you know?" "Because they never found this component." The answer made perfect sense. 6 teams had failed because they were searching for ordinary failures. They weren't searching for deliberate interference. Caleb examined the adjustment mark again. The evidence became clearer with every passing minute. The modification was recent, careful, intentional. Whoever had made the adjustment possessed specialized knowledge. Not general automotive knowledge, specific knowledge. The kind possessed by someone who had studied the Ferrari's engineering history. Someone who understood the weakness hidden inside a production report that almost nobody knew existed. Diana sat down slowly. For the first time, the mystery no longer looked like a mechanical problem. It looked like sabotage, a frightening possibility. Because if someone had deliberately caused the failure, then the Ferrari had never been the true target. The car was merely a tool, a distraction, A weapon. Caleb thought about Jazelle Voss, her public statements, the media attention, the timing, the growing questions surrounding her leadership. The pieces began fitting together, and the picture they formed was deeply troubling. Somewhere outside the walls of Reed Automotive, someone had invested significant effort into creating a problem that appeared impossible to solve. Someone had expected every expert to fail. Someone had expected Jazelle Voss to lose credibility. And unless Caleb was mistaken, that person was probably much closer to her than she realized. He carefully photographed the evidence, recorded measurements, documented every detail. Then he looked once more at the tiny adjustment mark. 1/8 of a turn. Such a small movement, yet powerful enough to threaten a $7 million vehicle, a billion-dollar company, and perhaps an entire future. By the time the clock reached 1 o'clock in the morning, Caleb knew two things with absolute certainty. First, he had found the real cause of the Ferrari's failure. And second, the most dangerous part of this story had nothing to do with the car. It had to do with the person who had touched that bolt. The following afternoon, Reed Automotive received an unexpected visitor. A dark luxury sedan pulled into the parking lot shortly after lunch. Diana noticed it through the front window. The driver stepped out alone. Perfectly tailored charcoal suit, polished shoes, confident posture, the kind of appearance that looked completely out of place on Cedar Street. Diana recognized him immediately from the photographs she had seen online the previous night. Ryan Ashford, deputy executive at Voss Industries, Jazelle Voss's most trusted advisor. Or at least, that was how the world saw him. Ryan entered the office with a warm smile, the smile of a man who knew how to make people comfortable. "Good afternoon," he said. "I'm just checking on Miss Voss's vehicle." Diana returned the greeting politely, but something about him made her uneasy. Perhaps it was intuition. Perhaps it was everything she had discovered while researching the company. Either way, she trusted neither his smile nor his timing. She informed Caleb that Ryan had arrived. A few moments later, Caleb entered the front office. The two men shook hands. The gesture lasted barely a second, yet each immediately formed an opinion of the other. Ryan saw a small-town mechanic. Caleb saw a man who measured every word before speaking. Neither trusted the other. Neither revealed it. "So," Ryan said casually, "any progress?" Caleb leaned against the counter. "Still investigating." Ryan nodded. "What direction are you leaning?" "Too early to say." Again Ryan nodded. His expression never changed. But Caleb noticed something. The question itself. Not unusual. The urgency behind it, that was unusual. Most representatives wanted answers. Ryan seemed more interested in whether Caleb had found them. The distinction mattered. The conversation continued for several minutes. Nothing openly suspicious. Nothing directly incriminating. Yet Caleb could feel the pressure hidden beneath every sentence. Ryan was fishing for information, carefully, professionally, patiently, and Caleb gave him nothing. Finally, Ryan smiled once more. "Please contact Miss Voss as soon as you have something definitive." "I will." Ryan thanked them and left. The moment his car disappeared around the corner, Diana looked at Caleb. That was strange. Caleb didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the empty street through the window. Then he said quietly, "He wasn't checking on the car." Diana folded her arms. "He was checking on you." Caleb nodded. The realization settled heavily between them. For the first time, the investigation felt dangerous. Not physically dangerous. Strategically dangerous. Someone with influence was monitoring the situation. Someone worried about what might be discovered. That evening, after closing the shop, Diana continued researching. The deeper she looked, the more uncomfortable the story became. Voss Industries was preparing for a major public offering, an IPO that could increase the company's value dramatically. Investors were watching everything, every decision, every headline, every sign of leadership stability. And recently, several articles had begun questioning Jazelle's judgment. At first glance, the articles seemed harmless, but Diana noticed a pattern. The same concerns appeared repeatedly, the same doubts, the same subtle suggestions. Was Jazelle losing control? Could investors trust her leadership? Was she becoming distracted? The questions appeared across multiple publications, too consistently to be accidental. Diana dug further. Then she found something interesting. Several months earlier, Ryan Ashford had proposed a series of governance changes inside the company. Each proposal would have shifted small amounts of authority away from Jazelle. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just gradual transfers of influence. The proposals failed, but the intention remained visible. Ryan wanted more control, a lot more. Diana closed her laptop and walked into the service bay. Caleb was reviewing photographs of the modified valve assembly. She told him everything she had found. He listened carefully. When she finished, silence filled the room. Finally, Caleb spoke. What happens if investors stop trusting the CEO right before an IPO? The stock value drops. What happens to the board? They panic. What happens if someone presents themselves as the stable alternative? Diana stared at him. The answer was obvious. Power changes hands. Suddenly, the Ferrari looked very different. The car had never been the objective. The objective was perception. If Jazelle appeared distracted, incompetent, or unable to manage visible problems, confidence in her leadership could weaken. And if confidence weakened at exactly the right moment, someone else could benefit. Someone patient, someone ambitious, someone already positioned close to the center of power. Ryan Ashford. The name now hung over every piece of evidence, yet suspicion wasn't enough. They needed proof. Real proof. Proof that would survive lawyers, boardrooms, and public scrutiny. Fortunately, Caleb already had a plan. He photographed every measurement again, documented every adjustment mark, recorded every technical finding. Then he contacted an independent examiner with decades of certification experience, a man whose reputation was beyond question. If the evidence was challenged, this expert would verify everything, because Caleb understood something important. The truth alone isn't always enough. Sometimes the truth needs witnesses. As midnight approached, the investigation was nearly complete. The mechanical mystery had been solved. The evidence had been secured. And somewhere across the city, Ryan Ashford likely believed his secret remained hidden. He was wrong. For years, his plan had operated in the shadows. But now, for the first time, someone could see the entire picture. And very soon, Jazelle Voss was going to learn that the greatest threat to her company had never been a broken Ferrari. It had been the man standing beside her all along. Thursday evening arrived with a heavy silence hanging over Cedar Street. At exactly 7:56 p.m., a dark sedan turned into the parking lot of Reed Automotive. Jazelle Voss had come alone. No assistants, no security team, no executives. Just her. The moment she stepped from the car, Caleb knew she sensed the importance of what was about to happen. People who built companies learned how to recognize serious conversations. And tonight would be one of them. Inside the service bay, the Ferrari stood beneath bright overhead lights. Its body panels had been partially removed. Internal systems remained exposed. For the first time since the vehicle failed, the mystery finally had answers. But the answers were far more dangerous than anyone expected. Caleb guided Jazelle toward the open side of the car. Then he began explaining everything. The resonance flaw, the pressure regulation valve, the engineering report from years earlier, the specific conditions required to trigger the shutdown. Jazelle listened without interrupting. Every detail made sense. Every technical explanation connected perfectly with the events she had experienced. For the first time in 3 weeks, she understood why the Ferrari had failed. Then Caleb showed her the photographs, the adjustment mark, the altered bolt, the measurements, the evidence. The room became very quiet. "You're saying someone did this intentionally?" Her voice remained calm, but Caleb could hear the tension underneath. "Yes." "You're certain?" "I'm completely certain." Jazelle stared at the image. 1/8 of a turn. Such a tiny adjustment. Such enormous consequences. She looked back at Caleb, who? Caleb didn't answer immediately. Because assumptions were dangerous. Evidence mattered. Facts mattered. Accusations required proof. And that was why he had invited another person to the meeting. A few minutes later, the side door opened. An older man entered carrying a black equipment case. His name was Jackson Webb. For more than 30 years, he had served as an independent technical examiner for insurance companies, manufacturers, and legal investigations. His reputation was impeccable. Nobody questioned his conclusions. Jackson spent the next 20 minutes examining the Ferrari. He reviewed Caleb's documentation, verified measurements, inspected the adjustment mark, photographed the evidence himself. Then he signed the certification report. His conclusion was simple. The modification had been deliberate. The adjustment could not have occurred naturally. Someone had intentionally altered the system, and the evidence would withstand legal scrutiny. Jazelle read the signed document slowly. When she finished, she closed the folder and stared at the floor. The reality was becoming impossible to ignore. Someone had targeted her. Someone with knowledge. Someone with access. Someone close. Very close. At that exact moment, her phone vibrated. A notification appeared on the screen. She opened it, then read it again. The color drained from her face. Caleb noticed immediately. What happened? For several seconds, she didn't answer. Then she handed him the phone. It was an email, sent 40 minutes earlier, from Ryan Ashford, addressed to multiple members of the Voss Industries board. The subject line read, "Urgent Leadership Review Meeting." Caleb read the message. The purpose was obvious. Ryan was requesting an emergency discussion regarding Jazelle's leadership capacity ahead of the company's upcoming IPO. His argument focused on judgment, stability, decision-making, the exact concerns that had quietly appeared in media coverage over recent weeks. The timing was perfect. Too perfect. Ryan believed the Ferrari mystery remained unsolved. He believed Jazelle was vulnerable. He believed the board would begin questioning her leadership, and he had chosen this precise moment to strike. The room fell silent. Suddenly, every piece fit together. The altered bolt, the media narrative, the leadership concerns, the timing before the IPO. It wasn't random. It was strategy. A carefully planned strategy. Jazelle stepped outside the garage. The cool evening air greeted her. She stood beside the building and stared into the darkness. For years, she had trusted Ryan, given him responsibility, access, influence. She had defended him in meetings, promoted him, relied on him. And now, she realized something painful. The most dangerous threat to her company had never come from competitors. It had come from someone sitting at the table beside her. She made several phone calls. Board members answered. Lawyers answered. Conversations remained short. Calm. Precise. No shouting. No emotional outbursts. Only facts. Because facts were enough. 11 minutes later, she returned inside. Something had changed. The shock remained, but the uncertainty was gone. Now she knew exactly what she was facing. She looked toward Caleb. How did you know where to look? The question wasn't really about the Ferrari anymore. It was about him, his past, his connection to the mystery. Caleb told her everything. The engineering project in Italy, the recall recommendation, the technical report he had written years earlier, the flaw discovered in a small group of production vehicles, including hers. As he spoke, Jazelle slowly understood something remarkable. Every expert had failed because they were looking for symptoms. Caleb succeeded because he understood the story behind the machine. He wasn't simply repairing a Ferrari. He was reading a chapter of engineering history he had personally written. When he finished explaining, neither spoke for several moments. Finally, Jazelle broke the silence. Ryan didn't create the flaw. No. He found it. Yes. And he used it. Caleb nodded. That's exactly what happened. The simplicity of the truth made it even more disturbing. Ryan hadn't invented a problem. He had discovered a hidden weakness and weaponized it. A flaw buried inside years of engineering documentation. A flaw almost nobody remembered. Almost nobody except Caleb Reed. Jackson finished organizing his equipment and quietly smiled. The good news, he said, is that the truth arrived before the board meeting. Everyone understood what he meant. Had the Ferrari remained unsolved for another few days, Ryan's plan might have succeeded. The questions, the doubt, the perception of instability, everything had been carefully timed. But now the evidence existed. The narrative had changed. And for the first time since this began, Ryan Ashford no longer controlled the story. He just didn't know it yet. Across the city, he was probably preparing for victory, preparing to convince the board, preparing to inherit influence he believed he had earned. What he couldn't see was that the very mystery he had created was about to destroy everything he had spent years building, because the Ferrari had finally revealed its secret. And secrets have a strange habit of exposing the people who try hardest to hide behind them. Monday morning arrived quietly on Cedar Street. The world outside Reed Automotive looked exactly the same. The dry cleaner opened its doors. The hardware store switched on its lights. Traffic moved through the neighborhood, as it always had. But inside the garage, everything was different. The replacement valve had arrived. The damaged component had been removed. And now Caleb Reed was preparing to finish the job. He worked carefully, installing the corrected part exactly as the original engineers had intended years before. Every bolt, every bracket, every connection. Perfect. When the final panel was secured, the Ferrari looked whole again, as if nothing had ever happened. At 9 o'clock, Jazelle Voss arrived. She stepped into the service bay and stopped beside the car. Neither of them spoke. No dramatic speeches were necessary. The truth had already been revealed. The betrayal had already been exposed. Now only one question remained. Would the Ferrari run? Jazelle sat behind the wheel. Her hands rested lightly on the steering wheel. For a moment, she simply breathed. Then, she pressed the start button. The hybrid system came alive. A second later, the engine ignited. The familiar sound filled the garage. Smooth, balanced, perfect. No hesitation, no vibration, no hidden resonance. The problem was gone, completely gone. Jazelle closed her eyes and listened. For the first time in weeks, she felt peace. Not because the Ferrari was repaired, because uncertainty was finally over. The mystery had ended. A short test drive confirmed everything. The car accelerated flawlessly. The engine remained stable. Every system performed exactly as designed. When they returned to the garage, Jazelle picked up the invoice waiting on the workbench. She looked at the amount, then at Caleb. The charge was completely ordinary. No special fees, no premium pricing, no attempt to profit from the situation. Just honest work. She smiled. A genuine smile this time. Perhaps the first Caleb had seen. Then she shared the final update. Ryan Ashford had resigned. The board had reviewed the technical evidence. The emergency meeting had been canceled. The IPO would proceed as planned. The company was safe. The crisis was over. For a moment, silence settled across the garage. Then Jazelle surprised him. She told him about the rest of her collection. 8 rare vehicles, maintained by different specialists, serviced by different companies. No single expert overseeing them all. I'd like to change that, she said. Caleb looked at her. She continued, I'm not offering you a job. That immediately caught his attention. I'm offering a partnership. She explained the arrangement. Complete independence, flexible scheduling, no corporate obligations, no board meetings, no executives. Only the vehicles themselves. She wanted someone she trusted. Someone who valued precision more than status. Someone who cared about doing things correctly. She wanted Caleb. The offer hung in the air. Caleb looked around the garage. The workbench. The tools. The familiar walls. For 4 years, Cedar Street had been his refuge. A place where he rebuilt his life after losing Emily. A place where expectations could not reach him. A place where the world felt small enough to manage. Then he looked at the Ferrari, and beyond it, the possibility of something new. Not a return to his old life. Something different. Something better. For years he had believed moving forward meant forgetting the past. Now he understood something important. Moving forward doesn't mean abandoning who you were. It means allowing who you became to walk beside who you once were. Jazelle waited patiently. She didn't pressure him, didn't negotiate, didn't persuade. She simply respected his decision. Finally, Caleb smiled. "Let me think about it." She nodded. "I'll wait." A few minutes later, the Ferrari disappeared down Cedar Street. Its engine note faded into the distance. The garage became quiet again. Diana walked beside Caleb and handed him a fresh cup of coffee. "You going to call her?" she asked. Caleb watched the empty road, then looked at the phone resting on his workbench. For a long moment, he said nothing. Because sometimes the most important decisions aren't made in a single moment. They're made one step at a time, one choice at a time, one new beginning at a time. And for the first time in many years, Caleb Reed wasn't looking backward. He was looking ahead. Maybe that was the real repair all along. Not the Ferrari, but the man who fixed it. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments. Would you have accepted Jazelle's offer or stayed on Cedar Street? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more inspiring stories of courage, second chances, and unexpected journeys. And remember, sometimes the smallest hidden flaw can cause the biggest problems, but sometimes one honest person is all it takes to set everything right again.